work we know as First Clement was written from the church in Rome to the church in Corinth in Greece. Now, by the time Clement writes, the church in Corinth has existed for nearly 50 years. It had been founded by the Apostle Paul on his second missionary journey, where according to Acts, he spent 18 months. But no sooner did Paul leave Corinth than problems began to brew. And the letter we call First Corinthians, tells us about these problems. And the chief problem, as Paul begins the letter, is that there's division in the church. And there were a number of reasons for it. He spends several chapters talking about some brand of human wisdom that the Corinthians have adopted. He talks about how they are suing each other. He talks about how some of them are eating idol meat even though others are uncomfortable with it. He talks about their practices in the Lord's Supper, where some arrive to the supper early and eat ahead of others, and then others arrive late and have nothing to eat, so that there are divisions even in the practice of the Lord's Supper, a ritual of unity. He talks about several problems dealing with disorder in their worship services. So rightly has the Corinthian church been known as the church with problems. And flashing forward to First Clement, we see that these problems continue. Now, things had gone well apparently for Paul after writing First Corinthians. After all, the letter was preserved, and so the church remained there. But now we see in First Clement that problems arise again. He begins the letter in chapter 1, verse 3 by saying, "You used to act impartially in all that you did, and you walked according to the ordinances of God, submitting yourselves to your leaders and rendering all due honor to those who are older among you." He continues, "And all you used to be humble in mind, not arrogant in the least, being submissive rather than forcing submission." So it looks as though the problem in First Clement is that the young members of the congregation have risen up in rebellion against the older established leaders. And so, continues Clement, "From this came jealousy and envy, strife, and faction." Those are the very words that Paul had used in 1 Corinthians to describe what was happening in the Corinthian church. There was jealousy and strife among them. So we see in 1 Clement history repeating itself.